Olivia Reingold joins us now for the Free Press. Olivia, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
A lot going on in New York and around the country. First off, when you talk about what's happening in New York, the president's had a lot of focus on Columbia, Harvard, and Yale. What's going on these college campuses? You told me you went to journalism school at Columbia.
I did, yeah.
So bring us onto the campus when you went there and tell me how it might have changed now.
Yeah, so when I went there were definitely hints of what was to come, where I remember at least once I had a pitch shot down because it was considered racist. Honestly, it's a little complicated to get into, but I think it was racist that they considered it racist.
Yes.
Definitely over abortion. I mean, they considered the job of a reporter, especially when it comes to abortion, to expose the corruption of the pro-life movement. So it's very easy to see where the social justice roots come in. I went there pre-BLM, and from what I've heard from students who have gone there after BLM, I mean, in my head, I call it the Columbia School of Propaganda, because I think it really is to train the next generation of journalists how to help progressive movements and make liberal cases through reporting.
So this guy, this student, Moshan Madawi,
right,
who is a co-founder of a Palestinian group on campus that helped lead the takeover of the encampments and everything else like that, was let go out of an ICE facility in Vermont. They said he's not a danger. However, they do have a gun store owner who says that he told him that he used this gun to kill Jews.
Right.
Seems to me that's in danger. In fact, when he broke up with his wife, she turned in his gun because she was concerned about her welfare. These are two incidents you would think a judge would say, hey, listen, until we determine your legal status, we should probably hold on to you.
So, okay, those instances are news to me. What I can say is that I did embed within the Columbia encampment. I probably spent, 4 or 5 days there, sometimes blending in as a student. And I saw an interview in which that student was really shocked by the descriptions of the encampment being anti-Semitic, and it absolutely was. I mean, really what they stood for was a sanitized, westernized version of the actual Hamas doctrine. It's very hard to distinguish where Hamas's ideology begins and where a lot of the ideas that were floating around that encampment stood for. So, the student, personally, I am conflicted about what should happen regarding his immigration status, but I mean, it's clear as day. The group is extremely radical and anti-Israel.
Right, and Columbia started it, and they let that $400 million frozen, and they said, okay, what do we need to do to get that money unfrozen? Trump is saying we're going to look at everything, including your curriculum. They don't know how to handle that. This is an all-out. This is an attempt to straighten this whole thing out. The poison ivy part of America.
Right. And I mean, personally, I'm also conflicted on this. I mean,
should the government
really,
be telling you what's
really
supposed
an
to study?
Aggressive and a slippery slope. But at the same time, I mean, next semester, there are already classes slated on settler colonialism that use Israel as an example. And so I'm not quite sure how you get the rot out. I'd like to think that you get the rot out just by open debate and exchange of ideas, but anyone suggesting that Israel has simply the right to exist is shut down on campus.
When you embedded, they said they call themselves the Gaza Solidarity Encampment.
Yeah.
And when the Iranians come out and thank you, and when Hamas comes out and thanks the students in America, isn't that isn't that telling?
I mean, to that, here's the thing. I think they are so confused that they actually might think that that's a plus for them. I mean, when you speak to a lot of these students, I'm not sure if they would even. I think they outright support the Iranian regime at this point. To be honest.
Now think about that. What education could you possibly have? The people of Iran hate their regime. But we here in America, like the Grand Ayatollah, if you're a woman, Do you think you'd thrive in Iran?
Right.
Do you think any of these women
Right.
would thrive?
Right.
I'm so
Right.
tired of having rights and freedom to speak
Right.
and pick out my own outfits.
Right. And I mean, women is one thing, but when I was walking along the encampment, there were tons of signs. Queer starts with an F for Palestine. A lot of trans support for Palestine. I have no idea what their conception.
Because you know how they feel about homosexuality.
Yeah. I like we were talking about the pitch that it was racist, that they thought it was racist. I think that this is I think that they think that the Palestinians only believe or are only anti-LGBTQ because of Western oppression or something like that, instead of it being a sincere belief.
Right.
It's so confusing.
They're trying to give them a bailout for
It's so bizarre.
their archaic beliefs about human sexuality, when in turn, if you were gay, they would say, what roof do you want us to throw you off of?
Exactly.
So we'll see what happens. And as I mentioned before, Professor McWhorter was sitting in your seat. Right. He's a very well-known author and professor at Columbia.
Yeah.
And he said that he believes the majority of the faculty think Israel was a huge mistake. And they got the job, and they're teaching elite students that you need to get fantastic grades in order to be an undergrad. They're looking at the foreign students, why they're chosen, what the school is getting from other countries. This is long overdue, but it's being hit. Harvard is being hit extremely hard. They're suing back. And Yale, last Wednesday, with all this scrutiny, still could not control their student body who came out against, who came out for anti-Semitism.
Yeah. On Yale, they were shouting "Glory to our martyrs," which is so bizarre. And most of the kids that I've met who are chanting this stuff, they're on Zoloft, they're using daddy's credit card, and yet they are basically shouting Allahu Akbar in the streets.
It's crazy. So you would think you're dealing with a naive culture of like the Bowery Boys, the uneducated without parents living in an orphanage. But you're talking about kids highly educated, with a lot of options, who get into an elite school, and their choice to go with that barbaric way of thinking is insane. Did they even read about 9/11?
Well, that's a whole nother thing, because I think that there's a lot of 9/11 revisionism. But I think that it is two things. I think it's a lack of skepticism. I think that if you are presented a sanitized, westernized version of the Hamas doctrine, I think that professors, like we were just talking about, have found a compelling way to frame it in a social justice narrative. But these students, they lack the skepticism to even go and Google the counter arguments. So I will be sympathetic in that regard, that that some of these arguments are highly persuasive, especially if it's framed as a, evil white people against brown minorities type thing, which is an argument that they are very open to. The other thing is, obviously, there's so much social clout to believing these things. And when I was when I was in the encampment, it did kind of make sense that for a generation stunted by the pandemic, I mean, this was fun. It's a chance to connect for them, to paint their nails for Palestine, to chat with friends. And so it's also a point of social connection, I think, is what's driving it.
The Al-Qaeda color scheme wasn't attractive?
Exactly.
I'm not sure. All right, let's talk about, just real quick, because it's another area you dealt with, PBS and NPR, President of the United States, in an executive order, is denying them all funds. Now, of course, they'll sue back. You work there. Is he right to do this? Is he right to feel as though both those organizations, instead of being unbiased, are biased against Republicans and him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. The first thing to note is that it really is a very small proportion of their funding, that NPR, I think it's about 1% of their budget comes from federal funds. So it really is a symbolic gesture to take that funding away. But I don't blame him, because I think that NPR at its best a few decades ago probably really was a public service. It's gotten really far away from that, where I don't think you can argue this is in the public good. I think if you're a blue-haired lady driving a Subaru on your way to, like, I don't know, volunteer at Planned Parenthood, you probably think it's in the public good. But it's become a really partisan institution that, inserted words and framing I wasn't comfortable in my reporting.
You had some
regarding
problems
Trump.
when you were there.
Yeah. There was one story I did that was picked up nationally by NPR where it was about Trump's tweets, one of Trump's tweets. And I spoke to local Montanans because I lived in Montana at the time. And no one I spoke to thought that these tweets were racist. And yet, when I saw what the NPR, the national editors, had done to my story, the headline they gave it had the word racist in the tweets. So yeah, I think Trump is not wrong to consider it a hotbed of propaganda.
In New York, you're also covering this Luigi and Mangione situation. We watched him in cold blood shoot the CEO. And by the way, no problem with the CEO. He has no history with him, just stalked him and killed him, ran, planned it, plotted it.
Right.
So he's looking at the death penalty. He wants to get rid of state charges, federal charges. But not only is he not vilified, he is lauded, and they even doing a play about Mangione. Yeah. Could you tell me about this?
Well, first of all, not a play; it's a musical. They've got some musical.
They're singing about him.
They're singing about him, and it's inspired musically. It's inspired by the show Chicago, which is has a little va-va-voom energy to it because Luigi is considered a sex symbol, honestly, and. Yeah, the makers of the musical have really been careful to say we're not valorizing Luigi Mangione. But I read this quote one of them gave where he said, OMG, it is so campy, the whole good guy with a gun thing. I don't know what they're talking. This is not the Met Gala. This is not, they were talking about it as if this is like a episode of RuPaul's Drag Race or something, as if it weren't a murder.
It was an assassination, right?
Yeah.
And you also in the same prison in New York,
right.
P. Diddy, who goes on trial on Monday, as well as Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, they appear.
So they all appear in the musical?
Yeah, and it's I think the term might be gender diverse casting, where they've got a woman. I think women. I'm sorry, don't mean to gender this person. It's potentially a they, them is playing Sam Bankman-Fried. But yeah, gender diverse casting.
We used to call that Pat. Remember Pat on SNL? No one could figure out if Pat was a man or a woman.
Oh, okay.
It was a character. Now it would be politically incorrect to do it. I'm sure they're going to apologize at some point. So you don't know what to make of it, but you can't get a ticket.
Oh, I can't get a ticket. No, I tried because I want to see it. I want to see it. But yeah, I've been, embedded with his supporters. I'm a member of the Discord group. I like to check in, see what's going on there. He's got a lot of fans.
Real quick. Olivia, you are working on what for the Free Press after this?
I'm actually going to that AOC rally tomorrow in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
So another one. So she's got one year in New York with Jackson Heights tonight. Yeah, I guess so.
Wow, I didn't even know she's
and then she's going to run in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Is that the oligarchy tour?
Fight in the oligarchy.
Fight in the oligarchy.
Bernie Sanders, yeah.
We'll find out can Democrats figure out what oligarchy means, because there's a school of thought from the Senator Slotkin of Michigan. Don't use the word oligarchy. No one knows what it means.
To be honest, I don't even really understand what they're trying to do with that.
I don't either.
I think that's going to be my question when I go there is, do you guys know what this means?
Right.
Yeah.
Because some rich people are volunteering to work with Trump. They used to say they're all volunteer. David Sachs, Elon Musk,
and
some others.
Right. And yet they're flying private everywhere.
You got to get, like John Kerry says, you got to be, this is the only way for me to travel.
Right. Right.
And for you too, Olivia, I encourage you to tell Free Press. They'll reimburse you.
Gotta fly private there.
Yeah, they'll reimburse you, I'm sure. Olivia Reingold, thanks so much. Great to meet you. Hopefully do this again.
Yeah, good to meet you too.